Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Moving and Listening. In this podcast, you will find two things. Number one, guided movement sessions, and number two, a talking format. The movement sessions will have always two parts. At the beginning, just a few minutes, something for you to arrive, a grounding. And then something not longer than 10 minutes I call floating, where I will guide you through that you can get into motion and, if you want, even into bigger movements in space. The talking format will be just me talking, or together with someone I will invite about something I'm interested in or what is on my mind and could be interesting for you as well. There will be episodes in German and in English. You will find the indication in each episode's title. My name is Mathis Kleinschüttger. I'm a dancer and choreographer, coach and trainer, and also the developer of embodied communication practice. Enjoy! Hello, welcome, and thanks for listening to this new episode of Moving and Listening, of a talk episode in English, which is called About Dance. And this is my first episode to topics around dance. And why dance? Because dance is the art form I'm most related to, because I studied it and I had a career for more than 25 years now. And I call this episode about dance because it's kind of a little bit of an introduction. Of course, there are so many aspects about dance one could talk about. So I decided to start today with a little summary of my own story of dance in my life to introduce some of the threads into different aspects of dance. And so therefore, I have to go back to my own childhood. I was a very active kid, and I was starting with gymnastics, I think in the age of 3. And then around when I was, 12, my mother took me to a local tap dance show in Germany, in the center of Germany. And it was in a little, tiny little town. And I was literally blasted away because here in this tap dance show, many things that I adored came together. Movement, rhythm, making or creating sound, and all this together with music. This was really amazing for me. I loved it right away. And I think directly with 12, I started my first tap dance lessons. And at the same time, over the next years, I got interested also in many other things, or I continued other activities I had started even before I started with tap dance. I played the violin, I started to play drums, I had singing lessons, I still did gymnastics, and I also played handball. The tap dance opened the world to dance for me, where, as I said, like a lot of aspects of the other activities actually came together. And I was not only in love with tap dance, but I had the gift of being talented for it. So I had a very good feeling for rhythm. I had fine motor skills, and very quickly I became also quite skillful tap dancer. I performed in many shows, and I started right away and started teaching others myself at the age of 14. So, in a way, tap dance was the further development of my sports and music experiences. Sports, of course, is linked to dance because of the physicality, the athletic part of it. And in the same time, it made sense to me to do other things. They all made sense together, which is actually still the case of today. I like versatility. And interestingly, also Irish tap dancing, which is a much older form of the Broadway tap I started with 12. And Irish is more traditional and more folky also came to me. I think I started when I was around 15, I think. And at that time, it became quite popular because the Riverdance show toured around the world and it became a big thing and more shows appeared. And so it was kind of all over the place. And then around my 20s, I wanted to become an actor. And I did like everyone tries in Germany, the auditions for public acting schools as they are known to be the best and also they are subsidized. So I tried many of them. I nearly got in, but in the end, I didn't. So when I was, I think, 21, I left my hometown. I studied cultural studies somewhere else. And in this new town, I took so-called new dance classes, which was around the millennium, a kind of this new dance term was a label for improvised contemporary dance, I would say. It's not a really used term anymore, but yes, it was actually what I would describe with a mix of contemporary dance exercises and improvised dance movements as a group. Yeah. And also I discovered and started contact improvisation, a dance form which uses the contact of two or more bodies to get to movements you only can achieve with the support of the other body. For example, because you share the weight or you take over the weight so the other one can do things you can't do if you have to carry your own weight, your own body. And all of it happens in the moment. It's improvised, so you don't really know what happens in the next second. So new dance and contact improvisation was my next intense contact with the dance world. This time in a contemporary version. And in this town where I studied, I met a young woman who studied dance in a nearby city. And suddenly that made so much sense for me that dance is actually my form of expression, much more than the acting. So I decided to try to enter a school. And I went to Frankfurt Main, and the studies there is called Contemporary and Classical Dance, and I got in right away. But I was 21 and I had never done ballet before. So it was really hard for me because to go from loving dance and doing it 2-3 times a week to suddenly do it every day for 8 hours was a huge impact on my body. And ballet is not only very athletic and hard muscle and technical work and so on, but it's also really demanding for ligaments and joints and so on. So I stayed in Frankfurt for 2 years and learned a lot and had a lot of fun, but also in this time I got injured very often. Because it was too full on for my body. And but it was another marking point because here in Frankfurt I met the so-called academic form ballet, which even feels different from folk, from tap and contemporary dance. It is so specific, so demanding, and for me it kind of brought up this a little bit a sense of superiority to others. Oh my God, I can't say this word. Superiority to others, sorry, and other dance forms. So I have a huge saying that, I don't get me wrong, I have a huge respect for ballet and everyone who loves it, who does it and is good at it. I really know what it takes to work so hard to get skilled at it. But this is one aspect which also came with it as soon as I started doing it myself. And maybe to make this a bit more clear, I have one image in my head, maybe as an example. So in ballet, you need to work on your en dehors, your turnout of your hips to be able to lift your legs higher than you anatomically usually could do. When you rotate, your legs in your hip sockets, then you can get over this limitation. And so if you train that every day, it creates that the muscles do this even when you walk in the streets. And therefore, there is this saying that ballet dancers kind of waddle like ducks with their outward rotated feet. And this is because the muscles are trained that way. So it has one reason, but there is another aspect which I also really enjoyed, I have to admit. So this kind of turnout of the hips, and that you can show this training to the world in the way you walk, gave me a little bit this feeling and being special and sometimes even superior, as you only can do it after that hard training. I mean, today I have to laugh about it, but I can remember the feeling which enabled me to distinguish myself from others in that kind of weird, superior feeling way. So, but that's of course my very personal experience and perspective on it. Yeah. So, with the ballet, we talk about with this very high level of the so-called academic form of dance, or also stage dance. I always felt and have the preference until today for contemporary dance, which felt so much freer and more enjoyable for me. But the classical dance, of course, has its own story. So tap dance was a kind of modern version or form in the modern times, like in the 20s, 30s of the 20th century, kind of a modern way of folk dances. And it became mainstream and became into the dance movies, Hollywood. But it was rooted in all kinds of traditional dances, using the feet for stomping and making sound and having particular patterns of movement with the feet and so on. Very skillful dancers like many African foot dancers, European folk dancers like Irish tap dancing, and then later Appalachian flat footing, clogging, and all these kind of folk dance forms. So it has a strong root to the folk dance. And ballet, which are then learned later, tried to be something different. Of course, it is much more complex than what I will say now. It will be only one aspect in simplified. But anyway, it is one perspective which still kind of sits with me in a way. So one story is that Louis XIV, the French Sun King in the 7th century, who's known to have supported and also really pushed the arts and was a big fan of royal court ballet. He might have wanted also to distinguish the royalty from the folks. Court dances, which have existed already, of course, long before this king, were also rooted in folk dances, but were already called versions to be superior and only performed at court from royalty. So this king wanted that somebody invents a specific, special academic dance version, which then became ballet. He founded the first ballet academy, the Académie Royale de Danse in Paris in 1661. And just to drop one name, who was writing down technique, positions and steps for royal ballet, was Raoul Feuillet around 1700. And at this point in my story, I just want to quickly also describe another aspect of dance, going back to the older and oldest forms. It's quite interesting that in the earliest drawings in caves of cavemen, which were found, you can see drawings of animals, of hunting scenes, and scenes of dancing humans. And that kind of shows that dance obviously was always kind of an important expression of human existence and community. It seems to have been a very important old form of human expression, and it served mainly as rituals for social connection, for spiritual and functional reasons, such as the marking of a successful hunt, the calling upon the gods for rain or other needs, sacrificial rituals, the marking of important life events like the birth of a child, the death of a tribe member, or the transfer to adulthood, marriage, and many other occasions. So, after I spoke about ritual and folk dance, about tap dance as a modern version of it, and ballet as an invented academic form to take another step from folk dances further, I mentioned contemporary dance and didn't mention modern dance yet, so I want to give you a brief idea what that could mean. Ballet became the kind of only accepted dance form for stage until the change from the 19th to the 20th century. And there happened a lot of movements and things, many more than I can tell. And I don't mean to make a complete list, but one aspect was the so-called expressive dance, Ausdruckstanz, which was a big antagonistic movement to ballet at the beginning of the 20th century. It was about the individual artistic expression of feelings. Yeah, and people who are related or like big figures for that period, just to drop some names, Mary Wigman, Dore Hoyer, Gret Paloka, Rudolf von Laban, and many, many more. And from that movement, then further on, the so-called modern dance techniques emerged, which had a similarity to ballet in the way that they tried to manifest a certain repertoire of steps and movements, which had a clear definition how to execute, and they had a name. So you can, until today, you can buy a book for a certain modern dance technique and look up all the movements and steps, how they are executed and how they are named. The difference to ballet was that the modern dance techniques embraced gravity. They used the floor as an element to work with, in contrast to ballet, which tried to achieve the effect of weightlessness, gracefulness, lightness away from the ground, away from the heaviness of reality. And the modern techniques, like, just to mention some, Graham, Cunningham, Limon, tried to get away from the academic form of ballet, but in the same time, they also created their own repertoire. And then I come to contemporary dance. In my perception, it kind of appeared or started mainly in the 60s of the 20th century, where curious movers and dancers tried to get rid of any form of any repertoire and start from scratch and discover what the body can do and want to do for dancing. And one of the most iconic group we can pin it on, who were really unforgettable people for this kind of change, was the so-called Judson Dance Theatre. It happened in the early 60s in New York. A collective with dancers, composers and visual artists like Merce Cunningham, Robert Dunn, John Cage, Yvonne Rainer, Steve Paxton, and many others. And they called their events happenings. And they referred to works from Robert Rauschenberg, Robert Morris, Anna Halprin, James Waring, and many, many others. And maybe one idea is telling a lot how different their idea of dance was. For them, any kind of movement a human could use, they called dance. Also standing, walking, or lying. And this marks a revolutionary change in the perception of dance and I really still love this idea that everything can become dance. And maybe that's a nice ending for today. And maybe you want to take this on and think for a couple of days when you walk somewhere, when you brush your teeth, when you see people walking up an escalator. Can I see myself dancing? Or do the others look like dancing? Well, I wish you a lovely, cozy and peaceful December and Christmas time. And I will speak about other and more aspects of dance in future episodes. Have a great day. All the best, and hear you soon.